Okay, here I am in the exam. I open it up to the unseen poetry question. What is the first thing that I do? I go straight to the question to find out what on earth it is I have to do. So how does the poet present? Now I know that's always going to be the same, so I don't have to pay much attention to that, but I'm going to underline the speaker's feelings. So that's two things. I've got to find who the speaker is, and then I've got to talk about their feelings. I've got to remember that the speaker is not necessarily the poet, and I'm going to make that distinction in my answer because I want to show the examiner that I know what's going on. But it's not all their feelings. The key thing is that we're going to write about their relationship, whatever that is. So that gives me a strong clue of what's going on in the poem before I even read it. So let's have a look. Masons, when they start upon a building, are careful to test out the scaffolding. Interesting. Nothing to do with relationships so far. If I don't know what masons are, I come down here because there's a little bit of help. People who make buildings from stone. Okay. Now, I can probably predict that this might be a metaphor or a symbol for the relationship. I don't know yet because I haven't read the poem, but the question has steered me that way. Let's have a look at the next couplet. Now, I know this is a couplet and I want to be able to write about form and structure, so I'm just going to write down the word couplet so that I remember to write about form and structure, Mr. Salles. Make sure that planks won't slip at busy points. Secure all ladders, tighten bolted joints. Blimey, okay, well that's obviously just about a building. I can work out it's about the scaffolding. I haven't yet worked out how that might be a symbol or metaphor for a relationship. Let's go to the next couplet. And yet all this comes down when the job's done, showing off walls of sure and solid stone. Okay, so if that is going to be a metaphor, I can be pretty sure that we want the relationship to be solid once the scaffolding has gone. I'll just keep that in the back of my mind. So I'll write down the word relationship here just to double check that I know what it is I'm talking about when I come back to answering the question. But this might not be about the relationship. I've got to keep going. So if, my dear, there sometimes seems to be old bridges breaking between you and me, okay, that's obviously a relationship. The words, my dear, they have a tone, and I don't know yet whether this is sarcastic, whether he feels superior, or whether he feels love. You know, how is that my dear said? So I'm going to come back to that. And I know now that the bridges breaking between you and me is a symbol, a metaphor for a breakdown in a relationship. So I'm going to have that as my idea here. Never fear. Oh, okay. What's he on about? There's sometimes seem to be old bridges breaking between you and me. Never fear. Okay, so this means that he wants the relationship to continue. If the bridge represents the relationship, the fact that the bridge seems to be breaking doesn't mean that the relationship is breaking. Oh, so actually he's saying the bridges are not necessarily symbolizing the relationship. There's something else that's stronger. What could that be? So I'll just write down that to help me remember. What could that be? We may let the scaffolds fall, confident that we have built our wall. Crikey, okay, so the relationship is now a wall, but a wall normally divides something. But here, because he's talking about a bridge and buildings, I think he means the wall is holding things up. Okay. Not holdings, but holding things up. Okay, now I think I understand that he means they've got something stronger together, which is a wall, which is going to hold everything up even once the scaffolding comes down. It's very confused though, because a wall doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the old bridges. So, what would the bridges be connecting? It might be connecting the two of them between you and me. Okay, so they are connected by bridges. But actually, he's saying that's not the real thing. We can get rid of the bridges that connect us, because what we're actually connected by is a wall, and it's our wall that maybe we've built together or that we share, and that's going to keep us together. All right, so I know what to write now about the speaker's feelings, about the relationship, that even though there are really hard times, it looks like we need the support of scaffolding. Actually, we don't, because, oh no, maybe we do, because the scaffolds have built the wall. Okay, so what is the scaffolding in this metaphor? There isn't an answer here. He doesn't tell us, but I'm going to suggest that the scaffolding is time and effort. So they've put this time in together to build their wall of love, and they've put the effort in together, that even though other things that they used to have which united them, like the bridges, have disappeared. So it could be children, it could be the feeling of being in love, those intense feelings that have gone away. Even though that's gone away, there is still that absolute love between them, which they've built up together. So my last bit of, then this is my grade 9 plus idea, is do we trust the speaker, or is the speaker wrong? And I'm going to put that in the conclusion. So my conclusion will be, is the speaker self-deluding or deluded? That's going to be my conclusion. Okay, now because this is an exam, I don't just have to understand the poem, I have to write about it in a way that's going to get marks. So I've got to talk about features, techniques. So that's going to be easy, because every time I write about a symbol, that is a technique. And I'm obviously going to be able to follow the Mr. Salles otter method, which is going to be write about the opening. So here I might make that the title. That's going to be my O. What on earth is scaffolding? Then I've got to write about two techniques, two language features. So I'm going to focus on this. I seem to have a lot of notes about that. And I've got the alliteration. I'm going to comment on how that sounds like a disaster. These are plosive sounds. Old bridges breaking between makes it sound really dramatic, and that's going to contrast with never fear. And so actually it's the enjambment of you and me, never fear. That enjambment comes as a surprise because, that comes as a surprise because of the enjambment here. It doesn't stop. So, okay, I know I'm going to write about the enjambment and the surprise. So now I have my two techniques. I'm going to write about the ending, look at all those notes about it. And then my R is remember to talk about the form or the structure. Normally students write rubbish about that, but I have got rhyming couplets all the way through. And so when I talk about the rhyming couplets, I've got to make that link to the meaning. And the meaning is obviously going to be the relationship, because that's what the question's about. And it's going to suggest that the relationship is strong. They're still rhyming together, just as they are two people who are still loving each other. Bosh, I'm now ready to start answering this question. Okay, here we go. I start with the name of the poet. Heaney portrays, and I'm not going to say his opinions because I recognise that the speaker could be different. The speaker's view of a relationship which, and I've got to say something about it, it seems to be long-standing, appears to be long-standing, but has altered over time. Okay, so I'm going to start with otter. So I'm going to start with the opening. So the title of the poem, Scaffolding, implies, now I've got to say what it implies, that the couple have decided to repair and strengthen their love and relationship. Now I'm going to pick something from the first two lines to emphasize this. So this is emphasized by the reference to being careful. This suggests that they are careful to maintain their love. Okay, but also when you're careful, it also suggests that you need to take care that something is wrong. So I can add that here. It further, now I can write suggests again, the examiner won't mind, but I like to show off that I've got a wider vocabulary. So it further implies that their relationship has suffered so that they are being careful with each other. Okay, so I've got two explanations for a quote. It's always handy if you can do that. You don't have to do it all the way through. So I've done my opening. Now I need a technique, and I'm going to go straight down to the stuff that I wrote notes about, which was down here. Those are the things that caught my attention. Right, so we're going to talk about the bridges. They're going to be a symbol, and let's get cracking. The speaker imagines that their relationship was not a normal one. He symbolizes their past as having old bridges. This suggests they are not just a building, but part of a whole landscape. Because, obviously landscapes will have bridges. Okay, well, so what? I don't get any marks for that. I've got to bring that back to the relationship. This implies that their relationship was both special and all-encompassing. However, I always like to come up with an alternative interpretation or an extra interpretation. I'm going to focus on the word old and the breaking and the alliteration. So Heaney uses alliteration of do you remember B's were plosives, of the plosive B sounds to emphasize the horror that the speaker's lover, I'm going to call them lover instead of partner, but you can call them a partner, that the speaker's lover must feel as these old bridges are breaking between them. Okay, so that's a really good one. Now that nicely brings me to my second technique. So I've done that one. My second technique is going to be the enjambment and this surprise that the lover is afraid, but the speaker says, never fear, don't worry. Okay, let's do that on the next page. Next, Heaney uses enjambment to surprise us and the lover to calm their anxiety. I was going to use the word fear, but I want to be able to quote that with, remember, it starts with a capital, so I'm going to quote it with a capital. Never fear. This introduces, I didn't spot this at the time, but where you get a change at the end of the poem, you might know that that's got a name. It's called a volta. So I'm going to call it that. Volta is Italian for change, or surprise, or jump. I don't know which actually, but I'm going to have volta. So this introduces the volta, where the speaker asks there, because I don't know it's a him and we're politically correct these days, also asks their lover to see their relationship in a different light. So now I've got to prove that. Consequently, he dismisses, it's not he, they dismiss. You wouldn't get marked down for writing he, by the way, but, you know, I don't want to be sexist. Consequently, they dismiss the falling scaffolds as unimportant. What remains is their love, and I'm going to prove that by quoting, and I'm going to say it's symbolized by confident, remember the capital C because that's how it is in the poem, confident that we have built our wall. Okay, now I've got to interpret this symbol. So this symbolizes how they have built a strong wall of love together. So anything in the quote that made me think of together? Yes, there is. It's the word our, which I got excited about earlier on. So the word, and I don't have to say what word class it is, the word our emphasizes their joint what? Well, remember, effort, time, their joint effort in putting in, and I'm going to say a lifetime, which I know because the bridges were old, yeah? They've obviously been at this a long time. Putting in a lifetime of effort into their relationship. This wall is symbolically stronger than the breaking old bridges. Okay, now my conclusion, I've done that third technique with the enjambment. I've written about the ending. Now I've got to write about the rhyming couplets and then my conclusion, which was here. Okay, so the speaker emphasizes the strength, and I want something that says togetherness, so I'm going to have harmony, the strength and harmony of their relationship through the use of rhyming couplets. These symbolize how well matched the couple are, both in the description of the past and the present. So by the past, I mean the old bridges, but also the present when they've got our wall. Now I'm going to have my conclusion. Let's put that on another page so it's easy to see. However, we might not be able to trust the speaker's viewpoint. Their confidence, I'm using the word confidence because it echoes confident here, may be misplaced. Where once their love was great enough to link two parts of a landscape, because that's what a bridge does, doesn't it? We are now left with only a wall. This might suggest that what remains of the relationship and their love is still strong, but insignificantly small. So he doesn't even compare it to a house, it's just a wall. It is not even as great as a house. I'm going to say a building because that's what's in the poem. It's not even as great as a building. It is only a small part of one. So my final sentence, we might imagine that the building, like the relationship, is not worth saving. Bosh! So I've done everything. I've reminded myself to go back to the form and structure. I've written my conclusion. I have got full marks. That has taken me 27 minutes, even talking to you about it. And that means I've got extra time left, yeah? So there are 24 marks, which means I've got 1.5 minutes per mark. And that means that I have 36 minutes to answer this question. Now, many of you in the comments will be saying to me, Mr. Salles, your handwriting is appalling. We couldn't really understand it properly. Well, I've read every single word to you, but this is another top tip. This handwriting is pretty rubbish, but it's good enough for the examiner. Now, you know, I would obviously try to be slightly neater than that in the exam because I wouldn't be talking at the same time. But this is an important lesson for you. You get marks for what you get down on the page, not for spending time being neat. So messy though it is, that is enough for full marks. What would you do differently from me? Well, you might read through the poem 3 times before you wrote all this stuff about it. I could get through it just once. Would you have time for 3 times? Well, yes, because I've got another 9 minutes according to this. So you could have spent a few more minutes rereading the poem. Apart from that, you can see how the notes I put here led to me building an answer. When I go back to it now, I can see that I didn't write about the tone of sarcasm here, and I didn't write about my idea. Will I lose marks for that? No, I won't, because I've still done all the things I needed to do in Otter. I've got my conclusion. I know I'm going to get full marks. This method works just as well with the poetry comparison. Check it out in the video that's coming up now.